Have you ever noticed how some people are more relaxed and not really fazed by the outside world? It can be quite frustrating when you see this, as you probably experience a range of emotions and anxieties when you're out and about in public. Or maybe you experience being stuck in your head with your thoughts racing all around and you can't control them. Maybe the outside world triggers your emotions or elicits the spotlight effect where you think others are constantly judging you or staring at you. If any of that sounds familiar, then don't worry, because I'm going to show you exactly how you can detach from all of it and not be fazed by your outside environment. So let's jump straight into it. Now, there's many components to the process of not being affected by the outside world, but in this video, we're going to focus on a very big one known as detachment. And just so this video is very straightforward and crystal clear, let me just show you what we're going to be going through. First, we're going to define what detachment actually is. Then I'm going to show you why you really want to be detached. And then I'm going to move on to methods to actually become detached from the outside world. And finally, I'm going to show you some statistics because, we all love a good study. And then we'll draw some conclusions from that study, wrap up the whole video with some final thoughts, and send you on your way. Okay, so let's begin with our definition. And we've got our favorite helper here, haven't we? So if you don't mind, would you like to define what detachment actually means in this context?
Glad to be with you, Chief. And sure, I'll define what detachment is. Detachment is the ability to separate yourself from external influences and internal reactions. It means letting go of the need to control outcomes, letting go of seeking approval, and letting go of the need to find meaning in materialistic possessions. It also means letting go of your thoughts and negative emotions.
Awesome, so now we know our definition, and that really tells us what we want to try and address when dealing with detachment. So we want to detach from external influences from the outside world so they can't control us, but we also want to detach from our internal reactions, like negative emotions, negative thoughts, etc. So we're going to break those down one by one. But first, let me show you some other benefits of someone that is detached from the outside world and their internal state.
Hold up, Chief. I got this one. Those who are detached from their internal and external experiences encounter less anxiety, care less about what others think of them, have the freedom to move around and behave naturally, are more present in the moment, are more centered and grounded, have more focus, and most importantly, have more inner peace.
That sounds great. I mean, imagine walking through the world detached and not being affected by your emotions or the outside world and the judgments within it. You'd be unstoppable and you'd be free to do what you truly want to do. So, let's detach, shall we? Let's begin by detaching from our internal reactions. You see, most of your behaviors are driven by your thought processes, your emotions, your beliefs, your anxieties, past trauma, etc. These don't always direct your behavior, but probably 99% of the time they probably do. I mean, think about it. Let's say you, for example, in one scenario, your mind's calm, your emotions are settled, the trauma's not bothering you, you're probably more relaxed, you're talking more freely, there's no anxiety, and you're walking through the world with ease. You're not stifled or stiff. Now in scenario 2, which is a lot more common, let's say anxiety is constantly spiking up, your mind is racing with thoughts, and you're anxious. You probably notice that your body movements are more stiff, you can't think properly, and you're overanalyzing everything in your environment, and you just want to freak out and run away. Two outcomes. One is quote-unquote positive, one is quote-unquote negative, or so it seems. Here's where most people go wrong. They blindly identify with their mind and emotions and believe they are objectively true, which is ridiculous. Because as well as I do, sometimes your mind can chat rubbish, especially when it's to do with yourself, and sometimes your emotions can overreact when the situation doesn't require it. So why is this important? Well, it's important because detached people understand that they themselves are not their mind or their emotions. The mind and emotions are just components of the human body. Okay, cool, then who are you? Well, you are the awareness that notices when your mind and emotions are active or inactive.
Whoa, hold up, Chief. What are you talking about? I'm not my mind or emotions. Are you sure?
That's right. You see, most people out there believe they are their mind and emotions, but they're not. They are the awareness that watches the mind and emotions. Let me give you a quick example. All of you watching this, close your eyes and say hello 5 times internally. Say it to yourself and not out loud. Notice how your mind is saying hello, and then there's you who is observing your mind saying hello.
That is pretty interesting. I can hear my mind saying hello internally, but then I can also see myself watching my mind saying hello. Man, what a mind fuck.
Let me give you another example. Let's say we destroyed part of your cortex, the part responsible for cognition. If we did that, you wouldn't have any cognition left. But you'd still be there, aware of what's happening, just on a lower level than what you're used to. Or let's say we destroyed the emotional part of your brain, the limbic system, the amygdala. Your emotions would be severely limited or non-existent, but you'd still be aware of what's going on inside you. That's because you're the awareness, not the actual emotions or the thought processes that your mind engages in. You see, the detached person who is at ease in the environment understands this concept very well, either consciously or unconsciously. They understand that when a thought enters their mind, they don't fuel it with energy by focusing on it and thus expanding it and making it get bigger and bigger and bigger. They simply let it pass. They notice it, then disconnect from it. And you can do that too. But what you're used to doing is this. You notice a thought in your mind, and then you fuel it with energy by focusing on the thought, asking questions, labeling it, judging it, etc. Before you know it, that simple thought turns into a massive avalanche of thoughts and discussions, usually from a negative perspective. Then your emotions flare up, you start getting anxious, you become stiff in your body movement, and it's just a car wreck from there on. You don't let the thoughts pass, you focus on them and make them cause you distress. This is probably the reason why a lot of you can't get to sleep at night. You thought of something and then you focused on it, thus fueling it with more energy and making it stronger and stronger to the point where you can't turn off your mind and thus you stay awake all night long. But that all relates to your mind. What about emotions? Well, the person who's detached from their emotions and internal reactions, they understand that their emotions are just a chemical reaction that is taking place in their body. It's currently flaring up and it will eventually come back down to baseline. So they don't focus on it or try to escape the emotion or the anxiety. They let them be and let them process accordingly. By doing that, the emotions come back down to baseline quicker. You, on the other hand, you're trying to escape the emotion, trying to repress it with talk, or you're trying everything in your power to not feel it. The harder you try, the stronger it grows. As it's not being processed, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger until it overwhelms you. You're indirectly fueling it to get stronger. Okay, so your obvious question is, how do you disconnect? Well, the best method to achieve this detachment from your mind and emotions is meditation. Now, I know some of you are going to say, oh, I can't meditate. My mind's going to keep talking and telling me it's a waste of time. Well, that's exactly the point though, isn't it? You need to be aware of those thoughts and not fuel them to the point where they get stronger. You can do this by not judging, comparing, entertaining, interpreting, or communicating with the thoughts or emotions. Just let them be. Just watch them and let them pass. A good practice to take part in is to close your eyes for 10 minutes every night before bed and just notice the thoughts that come up. You'll notice that most thoughts are from the past or future. When you notice a thought from the past or future, call it out internally. For example, if you notice your mind racing towards an event tomorrow, simply say future and then let it go. If a thought comes up and it's about the past, simply say past and then let it go. You'll notice over the span of a week, the more you do this, the more you'll begin to naturally disengage from your thoughts completely. If you're emotional when you're meditating, just notice the emotion and then do not fuel it with the mind, as the emotions can grow stronger when your mind starts talking and trying to make sense of it. Notice it. Remember, you're the awareness, not your mind or emotions, not the thoughts or the feelings. Let the emotion run its course. Just be aware of it. Don't fuel it with your mind, with your judgments, with your interpretations, with your labels. If you do that, it will settle down a lot quicker and go back down to your baseline. Try this meditation practice for the next week, and I promise you're going to see results. Do this over a long period of time and your brain structures will begin to change. Your prefrontal cortex, your amygdala, etc. You'll begin to let go of those thoughts and emotions rather quickly. Next, when you're out and about in the outside world, make sure you check in to your internal world. Just have a look inside there and notice if there's any internal tension or racing thoughts. No one does this, so it's really important you do, because if you go outside and there's inner tension and you try to ignore it or repress it, it's just going to flare up and make your life a misery, okay? So check in. Now, if there is tension, do not fuel it with your thoughts, judgments, labels, comparisons, interpretations, etc. Just let it be. Watch it. You'll notice the more you do this, the quicker the thought and emotions pass. Remember, you want to go back down to your baseline level or close to it. Don't be scared of your emotions. Let them come up. Let the thoughts come up. You just want to practice noticing them and then letting go. This might sound a bit strange, especially if you've never heard it before, but I promise if you try it for about a week, you're going to see exactly what I'm talking about. It's something you have to experience rather than me, verbalizing it.
So my mind and emotions are going to act up no matter what. My goal is to learn how to detach from them by not comparing, labeling, judging, or interpreting them. I just have to observe them with my awareness and let them process until I go back down to my baseline level. If I do judge, compare, label, and interpret, I'm fueling the thought and emotion with energy, which means it will get stronger, to the point where it overwhelms me. Wow. That's deep, Chief.
That's right. Other methods include working on your self-esteem to improve your thought processes and your beliefs, reflecting on your attachments to become familiar with them, and learning to truly accept what is currently happening to you in the present moment and not trying to run away from it.
I love it. But how long will it take before I see results?
Like I said before, it should take about a week. Do these practices consistently and you'll see some good results. The longer you do it, the better the results will be. Okay, so we now have a process to detach from our internal reactions. But let's talk about outer detachment from the outside world. You see, we live in a very materialistic world, and you've probably been conditioned to be obsessed with materialistic possessions. But that is a losing game. You see, in the ancient Indian texts, such as the Bhagavad Gita, they stress that those who obsess or who are attached to the materialistic world, be it possessions, opinions of others, etc., they will never find peace. I mean, how can you? Look at yourself, for example. When you buy that new shiny object, you get this temporary high, or maybe you get a new haircut, you get a temporary boost in your confidence before it comes crashing back down and you want something new, and then that cycle just repeats itself. Or if your internal happiness is dictated to how people perceive you, then you're going to experience a world of chaos. Because let's be honest, you're going to have good responses and bad responses no matter who you are or what you do. So if you let those people dictate to how you feel, your emotions are going to be up and down constantly. And let's just be honest, a lot of people out there are full of crap these days. A lot of people are fake. So how are you going to let them dictate your emotional and internal state? If you do, you're asking to suffer. Now, the Indian text also says that you should detach from both good and bad responses and outcomes to really find inner peace. When you do this, you tap into a frequency that causes you to become present, similar to the meditation practice that we mentioned earlier. When you focus on materialistic desires, you tap into a frequency of pain and inner chaos. So focus on the right frequency, not the frequency that everyone else is operating from. From a psychological perspective, you can detach by doing the following. Number 1, stop comparing yourself to others in the real world and on social media. Most of social media is fake, as you know if you've watched some of our other videos, and most people on social media don't even look like how they portray themselves online. Stop following the media or these silly celebrities or these materialistic brands who make products on the cheap secretly but charge you a fortune because of the name brand, tricking you into thinking that it's more valuable when it's really not. Start simplifying your life so you don't continuously buy materialistic possessions or always chase them. The more you do this, the less valuable they become. In terms of other people's opinions, work on your self-esteem. In this case, focus on not valuing the materialistic world. Find inner validation, which you can do by building your self-esteem. The longer you do this, the stronger your self-esteem becomes, and the stronger those synaptic pathways will be in your mind. In essence, we're reconditioning your brain and your belief systems. You can also work on your identity and what you value and live according to these values. Just make sure it's not materialistic. Develop boundaries with other people. Decide on what you will and you will not tolerate, and start to approve yourself rather than seeking the approval of others. Remember, we're trying to tap into that frequency, the non-materialistic frequency, which we spoke about previously. If you focus on materialistic items, you're going to experience pain and suffering. If you detach from it, you'll experience joy and happiness. Take actions on your goals and focus solely on your actions. Do not expect or focus on the outcome or results. Just take right action and move one step at a time towards your desired outcome. If you do everything that we've mentioned in this video, you will achieve detachment. It's inevitable, and you'll reach that higher frequency which all of you are chasing. Now, to really drive this point home, let's take a look at a study, because we all love studies, right? The name of this study is The Relationship Between Materialism and Personal Well-Being, and this is in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology. And this study aimed to examine the relationship between materialism and personal well-being through a comprehensive meta-analysis. It sought to aggregate and analyze findings from multiple studies to determine the overall strength and nature of this relationship. And what they found was a strong negative correlation. There is a consistent negative relationship between materialism and personal well-being across studies analysed. Higher levels of materialism was associated with lower levels of well-being. Materialism was associated with lower life satisfaction. Higher materialism was correlated with higher levels of anxiety and depression. And materialistic individuals often reported poorer social relationships, which negatively impacted their well-being. So you can see, by focusing on the materialistic world, as the ancient text says, you will experience chaos and misery. So I hope this really drives the point home.
Wow, that's insane. I think detaching is one of the most valuable skill sets you can learn.
It is. Just don't fall into the trap of thinking, oh, I'm detached from everything now. I don't have to do nothing or feel anything. No, you've still got to engage with the world and take right action. Just detach from anything that can cause you emotional distress and turmoil. That's probably a better way of putting it. But yeah, let us know down in the comments below how you detach. And if you found this valuable, give us a subscribe and check out the video on your screen right now, because it's related to detachment and leveling up. So I'll see you over there. Peace.